sooner or later we'll all see who the prophet is. I've just been bumping Nas Is Like. Nas Is Like is one of them joints that honestly, I hear it one time and I just gotta play it again. I've done a video about this before, but I mean, you're talking like creme de la creme. Easily one of the greatest hip hop songs ever fucking recorded. But we're here to talk about Murs and Danny Brown, so let's get to it, okay? First things first. This is my shit. I would say that Murs, he's got some joints, okay? He's another guy in the 2000s that I kind of paid attention to. Wasn't a huge fan, but I like some of his stuff, for sure. You know what I mean? Murs 316 had some joints, and this is for, and this one, my favorite. I heard your style, now peach, nigga. The whole album, I sleep the nigga. Yo, the way Fonte came on that, classic. Anyway, Murs did an interesting interview with Soren Baker recently that I want to talk about. So let me just lower this for a second, and I'll get right to it. So that whole thing he did with Soren Baker, I think, is really worth a watch. It's one of the most honest interviews I've seen in a minute, where Murs just kept it 1,000. He was like, look, listen, I'm out here code switching. I've been code switching for my entire career. He was talking about how basically, he realizes that there's two audiences in rap. There's obviously hip-hop heads and people that really like rap, and then there's like white casuals who are on the sidelines, many of them racist, especially in that underground Def Jux days, which, I mean, look, listen, I've been listening to hip-hop a long time, so I'm very familiar with all that shit. And he was saying how he basically realized that, hey, I don't necessarily have to be the guy that these white audiences want to see. Like, they prefer to see, Slug and Aesop Rock and whatever, right? Maybe Brother Ali. Like, people, like, they want to see them cats, and I'm just the nigga that's among them that kind of is giving them a little bit of clout, maybe a little bit, but ultimately they don't really want to see me. But fuck it, as long as I do songs with them, I can continue to be relevant and get that check, right? And I thought it was very honest, because this is something about cosign culture, I'm gonna call it cosign culture, that you really see a lot in rap. And it's really become a big thing in the last 10 years. And that's why I always go against these like cosign rappers. Because look, it doesn't take a smart person to figure out that, look, as long as you somehow find a way into the fraternity of actual rappers that people will pay for, people are going to pay for Nas, they're going to pay for Wu-Tang, they're going to pay for Mobb Deep, respected people. As long as you do songs with these people, you could be trash. But if you can somehow, like, you and your team can get a way to get co-signed by them and show up by them and continue to do records with them, you can have a little bit of a career. You're not going to be the guy that everyone's checking for, and even the people that are buying your stuff ain't really loving you like that. But at the end of the day, you're eating. And I think this is why I have kind of so little respect for, Griselda and a bunch of these guys that do this. Because I know that at the end of the day, it's business. All this shit is really business. Like, nobody's really checking for these niggas like that, musically. Like, we know this. You know what I'm saying? Like, we know that at the end of the day, when these guys are doing albums and songs and shit like that, it's not about them. It's about who they can get, who can they work with next. It's not about them as an individual. So that's why I don't care about who likes who. It's business. And Murs really actually is, very adequately and very nicely puts this out and very honestly says this. Now, the other thing I thought that was really interesting is Murs was talking about obviously just the different crowds in hip-hop, and again, how race is important in hip-hop, and we know this. And I kind of wanted to springboard from that and talk about Danny Brown. So I'm going to get into that in a second. But, Murs brings up an interesting point about how, even as a conscious rapper, he was like, I never really listened to like conscious rap. Like, I was always an E40 type of dude. And, I've said that I'm not an E40 fan. I'm still maintaining that. But I think one thing you got to respect and understand is that it doesn't really matter whether you're a positive or negative rapper. I think what's more interesting is to just be a great rapper. Is to just come from the heart and be creative and imaginative and unique. That's what matters, really. Right? And that's why you'll find that at the end of the day, a lot of these like so-called content positive rappers, they tend to be trash or downright mediocre. But the other thing that's annoying about them is that they lean on people who tend to be more of the gangster-ish rappers. They lean on them for style, content, swag, charisma. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they, deep down, that's what they really like. But they're not good enough for that shit. They couldn't possibly spit it that way. So they kind of come at it from this, you know, other angle where, like, they do this paternalistic, that stuff's bad, I'm positive, I'm good. Nah, like, who cares? Just make good music, you know what I mean? Because whether it's positive or negative, I'm gonna like it, right? Now, of course, the greatest rappers in general, they tend to have some sort of positive angle to them. You know, whether it be Nas or DMX, by the way, you know, I hope DMX turns out well. I'm unfortunately not as optimistic in a way because I do think that it's looking extremely serious for the dude, just as a side note. But hey man, X is one of the greatest rappers ever, so I hope he pulls through. And I hope that if he does in fact pull through, that it's a real change for the dude, man, because you know, he's been looking gone for a long time now, and it's sad because he was my favorite rapper at one point. You know, a lot of people love this dude. You know what I mean? So anyway, shout out to him and his family and everything. I hope it works out. So the point is that Murs realized that, hey, I can code switch. I may not be as talented as like the big rappers or whatever I want, but as long as I can kind of continue to make songs with people that people will pay for, then I'm still in the game. You know, it's cool. But again, I understand that cosign shit, so that's why I don't do it and I don't care about it. But that leads me to another problem with, you know, listening to your casual fan base. And the perfect example of why you shouldn't listen to casuals and people who are outside of hip hop is Danny Brown. Now, I don't know what happened with Danny Brown specifically, but I'm willing to bet that Danny Brown started fucking with a bunch of white hipster casuals who were telling him, right, you know, rap on this EDM shit, because that's the hot shit. You know, you can make money doing this. And that's why nobody cares about Danny Brown today, even though I would say maybe 7 years ago, people were, you know, talking about Danny Brown as being one of the guys in the underground that was really doing some cool and unique and interesting shit. Let me talk about Danny Brown for a second. The first time I ever heard Danny Brown was this shit. This is like August 2011. I remember this shit so specifically because it was one of the few moments where I was honestly pleasantly surprised by something. I'm at the bar somewhere. I'm talking to like the waiter, who's like this white dude, by the way. He's like, we were talking hip hop, and he was like, yo, I'm really feeling this new guy named Danny Brown. I was like, I've never even heard of this guy, Danny Brown. This is before Monopoly had a video and everything. So he's like, oh, you never heard this joint? He's like, yo, I'm really feeling this. So he takes his, you know, iPod and he plugs it in and he starts playing Monopoly. Yo, I was like, what the fuck is this? I loved it. I mean, the beat was hard. Again, you're hearing this, I'm hearing this at a bar with amazing speakers and shit, and the first time you're hearing a rap record, right? That's what's great about music that's really dope. It just cuts through the bullshit real quick. You know what I'm saying? Like, the way he was spitting on it, like what he was saying, mind rule, it's sort of like hypnotism. Like, he's just going in. Like, the beat was dope and everything was unique, was different. So I loved it instantly. I still love it. I still think it's Danny Brown's, I would argue, his best song, but it's definitely like a top 3 Danny Brown record for me, personally. So Monopoly comes out and I'm like, okay, great. Here's a new guy in the underground. I'm really happy. I really want to see what he does next. And then Danny Brown starts to rap on these trash ass beats that to me weren't really hip hop. And he starts like, I feel like he just, and I know he was always weird and he was always kind of, you know, on that XX album, even that was like, you know, hit and miss. But to me, Danny Brown, I think he catered too much to that EDM, Skrillexy type of crowd. And that shit is dated, man. Like, I mean, now, maybe that's what he really wanted. That was his intention, to, you know, from the get-go. But I would argue that at the end of the day, nobody cares about Danny Brown anymore. I remember reading reviews back then from, so-called respected hip-hop outlets or whatever. Not really, but you know what I'm saying? Like hipster outlets who are like, oh, Danny Brown, he's really, doing some new shit. This album is amazing, blah, blah. Nobody cares about Danny Brown in 2020 or 2021, man. And that's the problem with listening to white casuals. They'll pick you up and they'll give you a little bit of buzz, a little bit of money. But ultimately, they will drop you quick as fuck, and you're not gonna have no damn career, right? In the long term, you're gonna be releasing bullshit music, and by the time you know it, you already washed, and niggas ain't even paying attention to you, right? That's why you have to, you have to ignore the casuals. You have to pay attention to the people that really love you and really love your music. That they love your music. I say music. Right? Not your image, not like who are like, yo, I genuinely love the kind of music that you make, and I think that you're interesting, and I can feel it, right? Those are the people you pay attention to, not like the casuals are just in it clearly for whatever reason, because they'll pick you up, but they'll drop you quick as fuck, and you're done. That's it. Had Danny Brown played the long game, maybe he had worked with producers who make actual hip hop and made some innovative shit, we'd be more interested in what Danny Brown's got to say right now. But right now, he's a non-factor, honestly. And I don't say this as any disrespect to the guy. I don't know him personally. I just think that it's disappointing for a guy who came into the game with actual rhyme skills. I think that Danny Brown, at a particular point in time, was one of the best rappers, period. Right? When he came out in 2011, I couldn't think of anybody that actually spit some sort of bars and had personality. And yeah, his voice was a little weird, but that's fine. I mean, that's hip hop. You can do something unique with it. It still had that edge and that grit, right? So, by the way, this song, Grown Up, also one of Danny Brown's best songs. I kind of wish he'd continue to make more of these, but again, it was just like, the talent is there, but the dude, for whatever reason, would just do these whack-ass sort of like EDM-ish beats. And that shit don't last, man. So the moral of the story is, I think, if you're an artist, you have to do, obviously what works for you. And I understand that there's financial concerns and things that come into play. I get it. But what I am saying, though, is that I think you have to play the long game. If you're really a true artist, you have to play the long game and realize that, look, listen, the casuals, they'll come and go, because that's what casuals do, okay? But the people that really support me, the people that love my shit, that love me for who I am and my essence, they'll probably always really like you, as long as you, of course, can, you keep true to yourself, right? And be innovative and interesting at what you do, right? And let the casuals catch up. Let the casuals, because that's what they do. They'll come and go. You know what I'm saying? But if you start orienting your stuff towards casuals, that shit will ruin your career. It nearly ruined Nas' career, in my honest opinion. You know what I'm saying? Like, you look at those albums, like It Was Written and I Am and Nostradamus, and it just kept getting whacker. It's because of that. I think he was just like, oh, I need to do this type of song for this person, this type of song for that person, this type of song for that person. And it's like, those people you're thinking about, those are casuals. Like, make great music. Right? Make a Lost Tapes, make a Illmatic. Yes, it's not going to be the thing that everybody talks about at one particular point. It's not going to sell a whole lot of units. We know this because that's how casuals are. They look for what's simple and basic. But ultimately, your legacy is going to be cemented. And I'm not saying that you can't do pop here and there, but you got to just be smart about it. That's all I'm saying. You just got to be smart about the shit. Anyway. Have a good one. Feel free to, of course, tell me if you do listen to Murs, if you listen to Danny Brown, what are your favorite joints by them? So, and like I said, I do like them. I think that Danny Brown, Monopoly, Growing Up, the Nana song, that was okay. I don't really listen to Danny Brown like that, but I have to say, again, I was disappointed. And I think that the direction he took rap-wise was disappointing to me. So, anyway, peace.